So, but I think
Yeah.
Brunson has realized exactly what you're talking about. I think that hit him in the face 4 years ago, and he hasn't let it go since.
Yeah, no, exactly, man. And then Darren Till, much like Molly McCann, I think like 1 and 3 coming into this, or 1 and 2. I'm definitely coming off plenty of those, but because of how he talks and what he did to build himself and build his career and build his fan base, guess what? He's still in a main event, and people still care. And most people were saying, which I never really agreed with, but the narrative was that if Till wins this fight, he's next in line for the title shot after Whitaker, which from a competitive architecture standpoint makes zero sense, but goes to show what we've been talking about all this time, of that it's not just about fighting the number 8 above you, or it's not about throwing a nice right hand. It's about making people want to see you fight.
I do want to say for Till coming into this fight, he was 1-3 in his last four. Beginning with the loss to Tyron Woodley for the belt. Then he lost to Masvidal, got KO'd by him. Then he go on a split against Gastelum, and he's just now coming off a unanimous decision loss to Robert Whitaker, which was a good fight. But what stands out to me is he may not be the royal class of 185s. Like, he may not be a top 5 guy. Or if he
What?
is, he's right there at the edge of it. I don't think he's a champion.
No, I don't think he's a champ. Well, especially after last night. But he may be a tweener, right? Like, because he did fight at 170, had some success, a lot of success, but then ran into some tough finishes, and then moved up to 185, and has been kind of like you
I mean,
said,
he's
not
only
middle of the
one
road,
win,
but
only one
yeah,
win, and it's a split over Gastelum, which that's
yeah.
not the best guy to hold a split over now.
You're right. You're right. It's getting less impressive, but it's interesting that he was able to beat Gastelum and then struggle last night. We'll get to it, but yeah, we got Darren Till, number 7th ranked middleweight. Even though you want to know it by hearing people talking about his title shot aspirations,
Yeah,
and then
you think he was number 3? It's crazy.
yeah, for sure. And then minus 175 favorite fighting Derek Brunson, number 5 ranked middleweight, and plus 150. And we previewed this just for a second at the end of last week's episode, and I said that Brunson at plus, I think it was even plus 175 last week or something. I was like, that's not the worst number in the world. And you were like, yeah, but I don't know if he'll be able to do to Till what he's done to Holland and these guys,
And
which is a very fair statement. There wasn't anything wrong with saying that. That was a fair statement. And I just it's one of those things that I was like, man, I must be missing something. Like, I must. Or maybe it's my recency bias. I've seen Brunson fight since the last time I've seen Till fight, and Brunson's been on a roll, and Brunson's just been dominating folks. And I was but I was like, man, I must be getting too caught up in the moment, because yeah, I mean, minus 175. I think earlier in the week it was a bigger than that. Like, people really expected Till to come put on a show. This was a fight for Till more so than it was for Brunson.
for sure,
Right, wrong, or indifferent.
this was supposed to be Till's coming out party.
Yep.
And you're right. When it opened, it was minus 135 to Till, and it got bet all the way up to 175.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
So the initial odds makers kind of knew what they were talking about, knew it would give me a close fight or a tough fight for Till.
Mm-hmm.
I think the public kind of gets carried away because, like you're saying, Till is so charismatic. It's hard not to love him. It's hard not to root for him, especially when he says the things he says, because he's really good on the mic. And he's not overly confident, but he is overly confident. He does a great job being back and forth with that.
But I love watching the post-fight press conferences and stuff, but I unless it's like a really, really big fight, I don't really get too caught up in the pre-fight ones. Bro, I watched Till's. Till's was like 27 minutes long or some shit when he did all the answers in Portuguese and all that. Bro, I watched every second of it, even the Portuguese parts. Like, it was he's so good in front of a camera, so charismatic, as you said. You're right, man. It's hard not to root for the guy. It really is. And then Brunson, historically, is that he's gotten much better at it recently. But up until, for most of his career, he's a pretty forgettable guy, kind of like like we described Morono. Now, he kind of corrected that, and I'm glad for him. And you see what it's done for his career. But yeah. So, man, I got to say, round 1, Brunson got the first takedown he attempted, and was able to keep him there for the rest of the round. It was like deja vu from his recent fights.
Bingo. He did the exact same thing to Till as he's done to everyone else, which is what I was
Yeah.
most impressed with. And then he
Yeah.
actually did better ground damage, I thought, against Till than almost anyone else.
Yes.
And Till made a huge mistake because he kept letting him have half guard instead of full guard, and he was choosing to take half guard because he was trying to lock down his back leg, which didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I was really confused by Till doing that.
Well, until much like Kevin Holland just didn't even, it's not like he was trying like hell to get up and Brunson like overpowered him or wouldn't let him. It seemed like Till was down to play that game or just didn't. It was pretty unimpressive for a guy of Till's caliber. Like there just wasn't that much resistance. Like I said, it looked very, very similar to the Kevin Holland fight. Like once Brunson got him down, and then I was like, so I started feeling pretty good about Brunson after he kept him down for the rest of the first round. But I still was like, okay, it's not going to happen like this every round. Like Till will get it
That's
figured
what I
out.
thought. Is Till's going to learn. He's going to progress. He's going to change his style of attack. He's going to be less heavy on the front foot.
Yeah.
Like, he's a veteran 185, 170 fighter. Like
I was like, this ain't the first wrestler Till's fought. Like, like it's not like Brunson was doing anything just like that nobody's ever seen before. It's a pretty goddamn simple, straightforward approach that he's put on film for his past however many fights, and Till just wasn't able to do shit about it. But like I said, the amount of damage that Brunson was able to inflict from top was impressive, and I think kept this fight from being a snoozer. Like, it wasn't a snoozer. It wasn't boring. It was actually really fun to watch Brunson work, and he was super effective. Did a lot of damage to Till's eye.
Oh, his right eye
was
in bad shape.
Doctor had to look at it.
Well, and then after the first round, I was like, all right, Till changed something. Second round happens, really nothing changes, and I'm like, in my head thinking, man, this is just not going to go Darren Till's way. You could just tell. Now, granted, I say all that to say this, that at the start of the third round, he actually did change it. He defended a few takedowns, was starting to stuff him, was starting to pull him back up. He had noted to his corner that he thought that Brunson was getting tired. Where it gets really crazy is he cracked Brunson and actually wobbled him and had him
He started
hurt.
to let the hands go better, too, and throw more kicks. He was making adjustments that I thought he was going to make in the second round. And you're right. Yeah, Brunson was slowing a tiny bit. I think even Brunson was starting to slow a little bit in the second round. Brunson didn't get nearly as much damage off in the second round as he did in the first round. It was more of a hold him down type approach in round two. But man, in the third round when Brunson was finally able to get Till down, and I guess if you're really wanting to go glass half full, you give Till credit for trying something new, even though it proved to be his undoing. I guess if you don't want to be purely results-based, he did try something different, which was going to his knees, which did mean giving up his back, which did ultimately lead to him getting choked out. But I got to say, I think even from a Till perspective, I would have rather seen him get choked out trying something different than lay on his back for 4 minutes again, getting punched in the eye. Like, I honestly think that probably was the lesser of two evils, even though it proved to not work. But just from a throwing shit against the wall and seeing if it sticks and just trying something different and not having deja vu Kevin Holland rounds, like, I don't know. That's a really positive spin to describe a guy getting choked out and finished. But like I said, he did try something different, I guess.
No, I mean, and that's the thing is, like, you can't fault Till for at least trying. But it's like you should have tried something different or something sooner.
Well, and I just don't understand, like, he acted like he's never watched a single Brunson fight. Like, he acted like he had no idea that this guy was going to try to take him down and hold him down. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it seemed like he just didn't prepare for it at all or had no answers for it or just accepted the bottom position whenever there's, like, 30 minutes of footage of Brunson just laying on top of guys from, like, this past year alone. Like, there was not a ton of effort to, like, even enter into a scramble or give enough resistance to create a scramble. It was pretty much until the third round. But the first two rounds, Brunson takedown. He put his hands together right underneath his butt, lifted him up, and did a phenomenal job of not taking him down near the cage. We're talking
Yeah,
about
DC noted
ability.
that on the telestrator as well after the fight, was talking about you can't let him wall walk because that's the easiest way to stand up. And like,
And
yeah,
maybe that's why Till looked so helpless, because most fighters practice using the cage to help him get up, and Brunson dragged him to the middle of the octagon, and there was no cage to help him. So he did look like just a fish out of water, man. I mean, Brunson was just able to control him. I mean, Brunson looked phenomenal. Like I remember last week when we were previewing it, and I was like, damn, can Brunson just do the same thing that he did to Holland to Till? And you're like, yeah, Till's a lot higher level than Holland, and that's not a false statement. Or maybe it'll prove to be. But anyway, like I was just impressed of Brunson to just rinse and repeat and just prove that he was the higher caliber fighter. I mean, am I wrong? Like,
no, essentially he showed better fight IQ and better overall skill set. And then, I mean, immediately following the fight, Brunson literally ran to the octagon. I was like, "Where's the camera?" Found which I love this. Found the camera. Was like, "Adesanya, I moved to this city. I'm here for you, man. Like, I'm here in this city every day, walking these streets looking for you. You come find me." And I was like, "That's a nice little call out."
Yeah, man. And he also made a very valid point of whether, because we've had this age-old debate before, like what's better, like see Sandhagen or see some of the other guys who we just knew number one contenders, but then they took a fight and got beat, and now they have to title shot got pushed down the road. Like, is it better to wait for your title shot, a la Colby Covington, who we like to kill for doing that? And
it's gonna pay. I think it's gonna pay dividends to Colby here shortly.
It's gonna work, and is it gonna work again for Brunson? Brunson said he'll sit out and wait for the title shot. Which the only reason why I didn't hate when Brunson did it, like not all situations are created equal. All week, all anybody talked about was how if Till wins, he gets the title shot.
If Brunson wins, it wasn't guaranteed, which is that's kind of some bullshit. That number 7 could beat 5 and get a title, but 5 can't beat that same guy and get the title. Well, I disagreed with that logic.
I disagree with that logic as well, but even like simplifying it even more, like even if you just dissolve the rankings and the numbers, like is this or is this not a number one contenders bout? Like it either is or it isn't, right? Like it's not
exactly.
It is for if this happens, but it's not if that happens. In my opinion, and I know fair is probably the wrong word to even bring up when it comes to the UFC and who gets what push and all of that. It's not always merit based, but it just, to me, it's a simple, like, was this a number one contenders fight? Like, okay, it was, right? That's what you guys told me. But so the winner of it is the number one contender, right? And I think what also makes all this really weird is how Whitaker Adesanya, everybody and their dog knows that's the fight, but no inks on paper. And there's the lockdowns in Australia and New Zealand, and there's a lot of factors murky in that water. I think it also is really stark contrast to Cannonier just beating Gastelum last week, and then or 2 weeks ago maybe, and then and he said the exact opposite. He said, I can't afford. And that's funny. I just realized Brunson did a little shot at Cannonier.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. He literally was like, "Hell no, I ain't broke. I'll wait. I don't give a shit." And I was like,
Cannonier was like, "I can't afford
I'm
to
broke.
wait.
I can't wait."
I just made that connection. I remembered Brunson said that, but I was like, "Damn, why'd he say that?" But then he's like, "Oh, he kind of shit on Cannonier there." But
here's the one thing I think that works against Brunson, and it's solely based on how Cannonier does in their fight. Because, and what I mean when I say that is if Cannonier wins his next fight, whoever that may be against, probably Vettori, something like that, but like starches him and puts him out cold, well, then we're talking about a whole different type of situation where maybe Cannonier's the hot iron and he gets the first shot. Well, I don't know how that works.
Izzy has mentioned Cannonier's name before too, so like that matters here. Like Izzy was mentioned in 2 names, and they were Till and Cannonier. Neither one of them was Brunson. But I mean, Brunson is like, he's kind of making himself undeniable, right? Like, well, and it matters too that, I mean, so if you want to say Brunson's 5, how does he skip 1 through 4? Well, look to 1 through 4. It's Costa, Vettori, L to Adesanya, and then
Cannonier,
Cannonier, who openly
Whitaker.
said that he's not the number one contender. So I mean,
Yeah,
I'll take him
Cannonier,
at his
Whitaker.
word.
Like those are all four of the guys.
Yeah. So Brunson, I mean, Brunson made his case for being over Cannonier. Whitaker's already got the title shot. Costa's making all the wrong moves. Vittori recently he hasn't fought since his title shot. He didn't look, that great. So he needs another fight. Yeah, I think you're right. It probably is Vittori Cannonier. And I don't have a problem with Brunson waiting. Now, we'll see if it pays off, because the thing about Brunson is he's 37. So if it takes him 18 months, I mean, are we talking 39 by the time he fights Izzy? Or, you never know. You never know. It may not prove. We'll see. It's a gamble. To say that it's a slam dunk would be a false statement. It's a gamble, but we'll see if it pays off.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't wait to see. I honestly kind of hope Brunson does get a title shot, man. My knee-jerk reaction, because I'm not a huge Brunson fan, was that I'm not for Brunson to get the title shot. I would, but then I was like, you know what? Nah, I'm with it. I think he deserves it. He's won 5 in a row, all good opponents, and he looks better and better. So,
and it's weird because he's smaller than Vittori, but I honestly think he's better at what Vittori does than Vittori is, if that makes sense.
I agree with you on that too.
And I wouldn't have said that before last night, but he's just demonstrated the ability, to keep people down in a way, and obviously he's not the first guy to enter into a style bender fight with the intentions of taking him down and keeping him there, obviously. But just Brunson's ability for people to know what he's about to try to do and him to do it anyway, I'm not saying it will translate, but it has the ability to translate. I don't think Adesanya is just automatically off the bat just immune to that or invincible to that. Now, it's really hard to use the Jan Blachowicz fight as an example, because there's the obvious caveat of 40 pounds or whatever.
Right.
But the Brunson almost fights like he's 40 pounds bigger than he is. It's weird the amount of top pressure he can generate. He has a Dagestani level.
Yeah, I was going to say he's an odd American wrestler, because he does so much upper body wrestling, which is uncommon for American wrestlers. We're almost always on the legs, attacking below the waist.
And Brunson's one of the few guys that does what DC always calls for, which is when one takedown attempt fails, he'll turn a double into a single, or a single into a double, or a double into a clinch, into a trip, or you know what I'm saying? He
chain wrestles.
Yeah, which DC's always calling for, and not many guys can do, man. That's high level shit. It's what Stylebender is to striking, that train wrestling is to grappling in a way. It's next level. A lot of guys know that's what they should do, or would be a good idea for them to try, but not many guys effectively employ that in MMA. Brunson's phenomenal at it.
I agree completely, which I just can't wait to see. I honestly can't wait to see, because he's going to have learned from his fight with Adesanya and his new camp that he fights out of. I mean, they're doing good stuff. They figured out Brunson's package and how to make it the most effective.
Super effective and less boring. Like I said,
boring, which is crazy, because he's doing the same things.
This fight against Till was not a snooze. It was not a snooze.
No, not at all. And he does a lot more ground and pound now. He's way more effective at posturing on the ground and grounding and pounding, which has changed completely his relevance to the overall game itself.
And he even found his way to full mount. He didn't just strictly hang out in half guard, even though he mostly did. He did make his way to full mount at one point, and got the bag. He showed some other avenues, some other paths to victory. And pretty hard not to be high on Brunson right now. Is it not the funnest guy, not the flashiest guy, pretty funny, pretty good follow on social media, but can laugh at himself, but just kind of making himself undeniable. You know what I'm saying? Low-key can make – everybody's conceded Whitaker gets the shot, but I'd say Whitaker's one win over Gastelum doesn't necessarily supersede all the work Brunson's done in the past year and a half.
I'm with you.
Make that case, on paper. Now, it's not going to happen, because Brunson himself, everybody has just rolled out the red carpet for Whitaker. But, if I was Brunson, as much as I did like his call-out, he left out one thing. He should have tried to discredit Whitaker. He'd been like, hey, there's no lockdowns in North Carolina. We got fucking – so we can sell out a stadium in Charlotte. Fucking let's make, because that's by all accounts the only reason the Whitaker Adesanya fight hasn't happened is because apparently I read online that in New Zealand, you have to book an appointment with the government. You have to book a return quarantine at like a government
Yes,
facility.
that's correct. That's correct. And then
And they're
stay there
all
for like
booked
3
up like
weeks.
they're like booked up 4 months in advance. So if Brunson, as much as he did almost everything good last night, he should have like pointed out there's no COVID lockdowns in North Carolina or in Houston or in Vegas or wherever the fuck. Like you
He
can
had options.
you
He
can
had options
quarantine
as to
at
how to
my
swing
house
that.
afterwards if you need to. Like or you're gonna be in the hospital bed for 14 days anyway. You don't even need to quarantine. Like there would have been some good ways to spin that part of the narrative that I thought not only would be entertaining, but would actually make a lot of sense and maybe get him closer to a title shot. But hey, what can you do?
Yeah, overall, fun card, man. Even though it was 9 fights and it was early morning card and it was based pretty much for English people in England or anyone in the UK area, I enjoyed the hell out of the card. I actually really enjoyed it. Like I thought the fights were entertaining, with the exception of like 2 that were just kind of one-sided decisions. I thought 7 of those fights were very entertaining.
How the fuck did Leon Edwards manage to not fight on
He
the?
manages to not fight every time that
He
he's
got a
like.
PhD in not fighting, dude.
It's
Like,
insane,
what the
bro.
fuck?
It's
How is he
insane,
not
bro.
headlining this card? Are you
Or
like
even on it
Carlos
somewhere.
Coleman? Oh yeah, dude. What the fuck, dude? What a miss.